meeting. Like, everyone actually has
Wait.
8 seconds to
So
say what they
what
want to say.
happened?
You give 8 seconds to each house, and then we're just done. That's it. You're done.
What houses are we missing right now?
It would be really nice if...
Want to do a roll call down the house?
The thing where like
Yeah,
people
whoever
put
just
titles
spoke
first, then
is
factions. Yeah, that's Rajavela. It would be really nice if Adam hadn't made it title house, if he'd made it house title, because then when you join a big thingy, everyone would be in house order, and it would just be so
Maybe
convenient.
we can ask him for that. Maybe we can ask, like, hey,
Maybe.
just for logistics' sake, can we do that on the server?
Because it would just
It
be really
still wouldn't
convenient for you to look and go, Crux, Vela, Fornax, Fornax, this is great.
That ship is long since sailed.
I noticed you only said the majors. Kappa.
Yeah, the major house wouldn't. You
It
say
still
some
wouldn't
of
work.
that.
Let's do a roll call.
Guys, let's not make this meeting of Imperial
no,
nobles political.
Let's do a roll call because we need to make sure we need to figure out which houses are we missing.
I think there's everyone, but let's make a roll call. Just make sure.
We also have the church.
We've got Church, we've got the 3 majors, then we've got Reticulum, we've got Pixis, we've got Aquila, we've got Lyra, we have a Serpent, who is currently muted, we have Triangulum, we
have Eridanus.
We have Eridanus, yeah.
I'm right here.
Pixis. That's everyone in the church, yeah.
That's 10.
I'll need to get up periodically. I'll deafen my headphones so you guys know that I'm not listening when that happens. Like right now.
Sure thing.
Well, it's time, so we need to get this thing on the way. So we need to make sure everyone's vocal.
One moment, everyone.
Actually, you're roboting pretty bad. We
I
can't
think
make out
the
what you're saying,
Valen's a
unfortunately.
synth.
Okay, I'm going to be dropping a document in the Imperial Council channel. You should all have permission to comment on that document. We prepared within Housecracks internally, like, just information for this meeting. So
I
everyone should be able to
appreciate
have
the
that
font
document and comment.
choices. Thank you.
Is this free to share with our factions, or is this just for this meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. If you can share if you want. This is specifically like for this meeting and for turn 1 information. So
Wow.
I would rather you didn't share my personal Google email with 2,000 people, but feel free to.
That. Sorry,
copy the
I'm just going to steal your email and be like,
yeah.
email
If you
this
just
guy.
exactly like please no doxerino, but like if you want to hit file, make a copy, and then internally share this with your houses, that is okay. We specifically made this document to be shared with the entire empire.
Thank you. It's appreciated.
Will it be updated after the meeting?
No, this is for this meeting. Like, if we were to meet again, we would make another document for the next meeting. The idea is to have a lot of information for everyone to have for the meeting, so that we are all.
I would like to do a vocal roll call just to see that all the houses can physically respond, because right now we're just talking between certain people. So we'll go from alphabetical order. So I need to pull up a list because I'm going to forget saying else.
Aquila's first.
You need to find a way that you can sort of like make it like a Mary Poppins song. Like, try and get the song like diamonds and roses and, whispers on kittens.
There is a lyre in here.
Packages
I'll
fired up
have
with
you
strings.
know,
Tempt us. Don't
that's
tempt
the
us.
sound of music.
Yeah, that is
That's
the sound
also
of
true.
It's
my
very
mistake.
important to me.
Yes, anyway, the point being, what you want to do is repurpose that song, but get the houses' names, and so that when we're calling through the houses for the roll call, you can do it in a sing-song voice.
I'll talk to
So,
House Lyra about it.
How
Yeah,
about
first
let's
order
just do a
business,
roll
that's
call?
Crux's job, right?
Get the hecates on it!
Alright,
Well, my party.
I'm going to go first major houses and minor houses, just so it's easier. So we got Crux.
Crux.
Fornax.
Present.
Present.
Vela.
I believe we're still having voice issues, but they are present.
Prime.
Close enough.
We heard a robot.
Aquila.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm Eridanus, obviously. Lyra, obviously.
Present.
Pixis.
Hello.
Reticulum.
Hello.
Serpens. We need to deal with Serpens, but Triangulum.
Yeah.
So we've got everyone but Serpents present, apparently.
The High Church does not take offense in being neglected from the roll call.
I knew you were talking. I'm just literally doing it by Major House. Sorry, I forgot you were kind of here as well.
Lovely.
High
Well done,
Church.
well done.
Here.
There you go. Alright, do we wait for Serpent or do we get us going?
Apparently, the serpent's person who is here is not the.
No, the guy,
The
the serpent's
rep.
person who's here is the house's minor, like, recorder. They're basically here
okay.
to record everything.
Okay, but you're still waiting on your rep. Okay, cool.
Sorting it out. Just take a minute to read this document while we figure out where people are.
Yeah, moments. Ophidian is the so we've got this recorder from Serpent here, but not the person who was supposed to be doing the meeting.
Yes.
Yep.
Isn't this the guy who changed the meeting last minute to this time that's not showed up? Like when
Yeah.
everyone
I mean, define change. He decided that we needed to actually have a meeting, so
I mean, we had a time that was reasonable and another time that was reasonable, but yeah, people wanted to push it forward, and then he was like, "Yep, now, cool, let's go."
I mean,
It wasn't.
A meeting is still a good idea, even if anyone else had proposed a meeting, I would have agreed.
the problem is that the times that were proposed were not reasonable. They were too late to do anything useful.
Well, we're all here now.
Sure.
Mostly.
Mhm.
Apart from Serpents.
Well, just get yeah.
I mean, we'll give them a few more minutes to get things underway.
Just give until 5 through 3 minutes.
After all,
until
we need
10.
a moment to absorb this extremely detailed Crux threat analysis.
Thank you very much.
Because in reality, 6 out of 7 minor houses is like,
Enough.
covering
Yeah,
the
it's
main
quorum.
anyway. So
As Meatloaf
That's true.
said, 6 out of 7 ain't bad.
That is true. I always forget you guys are only one faction.
You're not alone. People in Lyra forget that all the time too. I'm regularly yelling
a
about
lot
it.
of people forget that.
I'm sure
Lyra's
people
just like, why don't we backstab the bull? Oh,
I'm not going to say that people shut up out of the woodwork after the first faction turn and had to be reminded, like, that's not how a game works. Stop it. But it definitely happened after the first faction turn.
I think everyone.
Thankfully,
can
they
agree
all
that.
disappeared.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think, in every house can agree that a bunch of people turned up at the first faction turn, said their thoughts, then after the faction turn was decided, they vanished.
yeah, we had quite a lot of we had quite a lot of people join us and quite a lot of people leave us during the 0 and 1 sort of faction turn point, where everyone sort of was met. Their expectations of what it would be like was met with the reality of how the factions were actually functioning.
We'll give it a
This is
10.
weird because in Fornax it was pretty peaceful, pretty quiet.
Alright.
All right,
Well, I
well,
mean,
let's go.
in Fornax, everyone was like, "We showed up to build ships. Are we building ships? Yeah, okay."
Alright, we're going to
Exactly.
begin.
Let's forget serpents for now.
We're going to begin, so I'm going to redo the. Are we good to record?
Yep.
Waiting on the confirmation.
Never recording.
Oh, no, alright. So we're on the road course, don't have to do that. So, who wants to start with an opening statement?
I would start with the opening statement that we are here to discuss the coordination of the Empire, since we're allies, and the defense of the Empire against what looks almost certainly to be a very early strike by Vagrant, which by all means will burn out very quickly, but the point is to minimize any damage it does before it burns out, because the knowledge that they can't possibly win a war of attrition does not really help an individual planet that got burned to a crisp by them before they went down. We want there to be no casualties, not minimal casualties. It is not enough for us to win. We must not lose.
I think minor houses are definitely on the assumption that Vagrant acted very rapidly, and we well, as a whole, it was kind of like expected they would act something. We didn't realize, like, suspect they would do it this far. And our priority is basically making sure Lovelace comes out of this as the best condition possible.
Absolutely.
And Aomori and Lodestone.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
This is
I
not
was
the only
just
world.
saying, like,
Lodestone is at least easy. If at any point you use the use asset action, Lodestone can be moved out of Vagrant's threat range.
Indeed.
You must
but
bear
if
in
Vagrant
mind-
goes first, they can land on Lodestone before it can move, and then they would move with it.
Well,
Exactly.
this depends.
And then we take a bunch of Vagrants with us.
Yes, however,
we want to talk
Vela
about.
and Crux can move to Lodestone to support in that case.
Well, we have a
I
proposal
agree
on
that
this.
it's a danger, but it's not just a hard, we shouldn't move Lodestone because of this. Lodestone
Quite the
is...
opposite. We're definitely moving Lodestone.
Yeah, Lodestone is
Get
out
it
of the
out.
way of the Houses Minor helping anyway, so it doesn't matter whether you help it or not, or whether you move it or not for the Houses Minor specifically. I would recommend moving Lodestone. Obviously, one piece of information that's important here is the initiative order of Houses Minor. And I am authorized to and don't mind sharing Crux's initiative order.
High Church is number 1. I
Nice.
guess I'll reveal that since we have the
One-
best one.
Crux is number 13. We're last.
Crux,
Oh,
I would
then.
say, Crux, I would say allow other people to talk. Like, this is meant to be equal, so like give some room for other people to talk about their views as well, please. Pixis, go on.
So we have two main things we want to talk about in this meeting. One is we want to have Vela move at least one asset onto Lodestone on turn 1, if not both of their special forces assets, in order to counter any potential Vagrant landings.
Okay, I'm listening.
It's reasonable. Are the Houses Minor going to share their initiative?
We're not sure because Fornax obviously has a different degree of security that they adhere to us.
Fornax said they will share internally but not externally.
So about assets. So our goal is not to move any assets on turn 1 because if you can look at the map, the Vagrants can also reach Prime.
Correct.
So they can reach Maja, which is our home planet, and also Imperial Prime, which would be catastrophic. I can we can all agree. So we kind of want to stay on our own hex.
One thing
High
to bear in
Church
mind-
is in the same seat as Vagrant. We have our Demagogue on Imperial Prime, and our home system can also be reached. So we feel the same way as Fornax.
One thing I would bear in mind is the most likely target of Vagrant is going to be Lovelace, just by the positionings of both units.
Or just any minor house.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
the
I think-
likelihood that a non-minor house gets
Yeah.
attacked is approaches 0.
I
Which
think
system
are
Aomori
the
and
PCs
Lodestone
in?
are also likely targets to consider, but yes.
Yeah, Pixis has. We're fairly certain that we think we're the ideal target because
They'd probably want Lodestone.
Lodestone is a great conquest if they take it. Also, in terms of reinforcement, Lovelace, Aomori, and Tiber are all much easier to reinforce for the minor houses than Lodestone will ever be for at least a few turns.
That is true, but Lodestone is much easier to reinforce for the major houses.
Which is why we
Then
want
Lovelace.
to bring forward Vela sending in assets to, while not permanently, hedge us against a potential Vagrant attack.
Question: which system are the player characters in?
The system player characters on Echo, and I believe you're right, it's very likely that they might actually just move to Echo just to basically get on TV. Like Prism is there, the PCs are there. Also, it's a place where almost none of us can reinforce that well. Only the Houses Minor can reach it at all.
I think ultimately we are, at least as the Houses Minor, I think we're way less concerned about Prism being attacked.
Agreed.
If
Definitely.
it happens, we can respond to it next turn, but I don't think it's very
Or not
likely.
at all.
Yeah, or not at all. Like both of those are, we can worry about that next turn because the transit web lets us
Yes.
move very fast.
Prism
I'm
being
aware-
attacked is a best case scenario. It's not really worth planning for.
If I could respond
I
before we
disagree.
get too far past it.
Go ahead, Triangle.
If I could respond for a moment to something Fornax said a while ago. I respect the wishes of Fornax to not move on turn 1, but I hope you guys would be open-minded to perhaps moving a strike fleet to cover Geomikado in case we want to evacuate our Space Marines to cover a different world that is more directly under threat by Vagrant.
So
in Geomikado, they won't really be at risk, except from UPC, which is why we still need something there. But
just to share some,
it's something we would like you guys to think about. That's all.
just to share some information. Our initiative order is in. We're in the middle of the pack.
Okay. That's
Sorry, I
Fornax, yes?
had trouble hearing.
And can you guys hear me clearly right now?
yes,
Yes.
Okay, so Vela is second in faction turn.
okay.
Which makes it really hard to be reactive in this, so which proactively it's more difficult to be just, okay, we'll jump to a defense and then waste a turn being somewhere where we aren't useful.
Just to talk about the Pixis point, we will consider moving a strike fleet. I can't promise that we will. Our intention is not to move any assets, but I'll take it to the Senate.
That was Triangulum.
Oh,
that
Triangulum,
was just
yeah.
I appreciate that.
Can I disagree with Reticulum? I understand that self-preservation is the most important issue to many of the minor houses, but ultimately Prism is the Empire, we are the Empire, and defending them is something we want to do. And Prism specifically is a concern and not a best case scenario because it is very hard for us to reinforce them.
Yeah,
It's hard for you to reinforce them. It's very easy for us to reinforce them.
Yes, you can reinforce them. However, the Church, Vela, Fornax, and Crux cannot reinforce them.
Another factor is that we do not know Prism's consideration on this. We do not know what their actions are. So at this current point in time, it should be trying to figure out how us as the houses and the Church, what we can do about the situation.
Sure. I'm totally on board with like the Imperial Core being the main place to defend, but I just want it to go on record that Crux wants to defend the Empire in general and not just our own
And
skin.
I was just making it clear that Prism's not on our agenda at the minute. We're trying to focus on our agenda on the Imperial Courts and whatnot. So
I would only agree that if I were forced to choose between minor houses or Prism, I would choose minor houses. But outside of that, yes, if we could defend Prism while still maintaining that minor houses are protected, that would be ideal for Vela. But it's not it's completely dependent on what happens.
I mean, it would be foolish to try to do anything proactively for Prism. If we see that they're moving on Prism by turn 2, we could do something. But on turn 1, I don't see reinforcing Prism as a viable option.
It's probably not something we preemptively do. I'm just saying that if on turn 1, when we make all these moves to defend the core, they then move to Prism, Crux will then, assuming we have a second meeting of the Imperial Council, be wanting to help.
My next question is going to be, since Vela kindly shared their turn order, can the others share their turn order and we will do the same accordingly?
We've all shared it.
Can we have a minor house vote on that first?
That's what I'm saying is we will share it accordingly to what we think.
Everyone except the minor houses has currently shared their turn order.
1 sec. So yeah, so Pixis, check the notices channel.
They have Fornax shared their turn?
Fornax, are you willing to clarify beyond the middle?
That's the information I'm being
Doesn't look
provided.
like I'm going to win this one.
In the middle of the pack.
So, okay, in that case, Houses Minor is also willing to say we're in the middle of the pack.
Well, we have 1, 2, and 13 here, so we can at least be assured we will have both the first and the last actions of the faction turn as an Empire.
So
And second 2 from Vela.
From my perspective,
the probability space that Vagrant goes before us a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, unless we think we're going to do something offensive, I don't know that turn order ends up mattering at all.
There are some things that matter.
I was going to say, for Vela, I don't think it's very productive of a turn to move assets to Lodestone, for example, if Lodestone doesn't end up being attacked by Vagrant, and if Crux is able to move, or Fornax, whomever it was that spoke on that, being able to possibly move a strike fleet to Lodestone, then if they're moving later, it'll be much easier for them than it would be for Vela.
Can only move 1 hex.
It's straight not possible.
I also I'm not sure I understand why the order affects that.
Because
this turn, we can't be attacked this turn, so we're preparing defenses for next turn.
The forces that can move and attack simultaneously are, I believe, the Church, House Crux and the Houses Minor. Vela can only.
We can't do that.
Oh, do you not have transit web? Sorry,
No.
I believe it's
my mistake.
only us, isn't it?
Crux
don't
can
have
move and attack on the same turn. We have covert shipping.
Oh, is that not an action?
Covert shipping is not an action.
But so yeah, so if we wanted to commit to an offensive option, then it would be an extremely committal move.
Yes. If you had a very, very high faction turn, the thing you could potentially do is move forces to Totham and attack Vagrant before they move.
We're
which
not
means
at all
that,
confident of that.
That's fine. Crux, however, because we are last on the faction turn, we can move and attack Vagrant's transit net and Vagrant's factory and be assured that Vagrant has already left the planet and cannot defend.
Can you only move one? You can only move one asset. Or can you move
We can move our psychic assassins.
So okay. So ultimately, if you were to do that, we would still need another asset to attack because of their post-tech industry soaking a hit.
Correct.
So is moving Psychic Assassin something that Crux is interested in doing since they know they're last?
Crux knows we're last. We will either take a hard guess on which planet they go for and attack it, or do the reliable thing, which is attack their industry and attack their transit net on Toyfun.
One thing, how are you planning to move? And attack?
Do you mean mechanically?
Yeah, Crux, yeah, mechanically.
Yes, we have covert shipping, not covert transit net. Covert transit net allows you to move all of your forces for free as an action. Covert shipping allows you to move a single force, and it costs a faction credit, but it's not an action, so you can take the attack action at the same time.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Thanks.
So Crux is the other faction alongside minor houses that can move and attack simultaneously.
Which is part of the reason why Pixis would like to have Vela assets on Lodestone, because Vela are, as a faction, less geared towards attacking Vagrant. They'll be much better served defending the Empire, and also not to offend Crux necessarily. We have a stronger bond with Vela, and we trust them more, because it is possible for Crux to attack us for some reason, or to have simply not moved their forces away, and then something unforeseen happens, and then we are under threat. And we feel that is less likely with Vela, and we support them as a major more.
They're all very well to say no offense, but we don't trust you and you are going to attack us is still a thing that's offensive to say. Crux will defend Lodestone if we need to.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that this is outside of character completely. Technically, we should all be trusting each other equally.
Well, inside of character, you should be trusting Crux as well.
No, I meant this. No, this is me talking way outside of character about inside of character and the roleplay as a whole.
Right, got you.
This is me as a neutral party, basically saying, physically, there is no reason we shouldn't be able to not trust one another because of we're the Empire. So I'm just saying that statement.
And I'm talking wholly out of character. Pixis as a house sees the likelihood of, because ultimately, intra-empire conflict is an unlikely thing to happen, but we see the possibility of it happening to us between ourselves and Crux and ourselves and Vela as having different probabilities. In part because of the IC, and also in part because of other things. Out of character.
Both inside and outside of character, I think that's a silly statement to make. I can understand that you have a bond with Vela for reasons you split from them, and that you're more friends, but saying you trust them more is ridiculous.
I mean, it's not. It's their opinion, so it doesn't matter. So something that I think is relevant to this discussion is we've had some preliminary discussions with Prism, and one of the reasons why I think it is extremely unlikely that we need to worry about Echo is because Prism has very firmly said to us that they are not going to be taking any action against Vagrant on the first turn. They're going to kind of sit and see how things fall. I suspect that the only reason they're doing that is because they have probably received some form of assurances from Vagrant that they're not going to be the target.
So how about paying off the Deathless to turn their grav tanks on their core transit net of...
renting a grav tank or two from Deathless is certainly an option, as is. So in terms of, to speak to Crux's plan to attack Totham with Psychic Assassins, if a second unit is required for that assault, we can rent Deathless to do it, or we can use the Book of Secrets or the Commodities Broker. Neither of which is Book of Secrets is okay on offense. The Broker is also fine, but less good for us. But we would rather keep those things protecting the worlds that they're on, unless we have someone else protecting the worlds that they're on. So the offensive configuration gets complicated because we need people to cover those worlds if we move those assets off.
Speaking of the Deathless, Crux is perfectly happy to pay them. There are two ways to pay them. Pay them to move their spare grav tank to Lovelace to defend it, or pay them to use their grav tank on Toytham to attack the...
there is also a third option of renting both tanks, one moving from the homeworld to Lovelace and one moving from Totham to one of the core worlds, for example, Aomori, as a purely defensive position instead of staying on Totham. Because of the way
that's not possible.
No, it is. They can use both.
It is.
Turn. They can.
They have Deep Strike Land.
They have Deep Strike Landers. No, they don't. Yes, Deep Strike Landers are 4/7.
No, they have Blockade.
Oh, sorry, Blockade Runners.
They have Blockade Runners and Extended Theater.
Very well. Okay. Then, yes, so you can... The point being that Crux is happy to contribute funds to the Deathless to pay for the Deathless. We believe that the Deathless should be used if you would rather use them to attack Vagrant early, or you would rather use them to move forces just
so the problem... We have one big problem with using them to attack, and that's that you go 13th. So ultimately, it is almost impossible, or is it actually literally impossible, that Psychic Assassins kill Transit Net?
Oh yeah, can they do enough damage?
Is it mathematically impossible, or just...
We would kill it. We can kill... it's impossible to kill Transit Net. Our maximum damage is 14, but the point being we can kill Transit Net in 2 turns rather than 3 turns, etc. But yes,
yeah,
it is... we are. If the Deathless attacks before us, we are not going to, assuming Vagrant makes the optimum play of tanking the grav tanks with their industry, we are not going to knock their movement ability out on turn 1. It would be turn 2.
Yeah.
Okay, this is like one of the matters I want to bring up. Of if you are unable to physically supply us anything turn 1 or anything, one of our hopes was, in order to fund Deathless, perhaps one of each minor houses in the church can supply like 1 fat credit or something.
Crux will give 5.
I think something that's worth mentioning is that currently no one has faction creds, so no one can make...
post. Yeah, basically you would
post turn 1.
Post turn 1, so we can fund the Deathless saying, "This is what we want you to do. Please act as accordingly." And it would be it was even for us to say, if like at minimum, if you supply each house supplies at least 1 fat cred, basically say we are all paying towards the Deathless to as the Empire to basically protect ourselves. I think that was a fairly reasonable thing. I came to a conclusion originally.
Yeah.
Because this way, you guys don't have to worry about moving your assets that you want to keep in one location, but then we also have that feel that we have the backup and the assistance we need. The other point I wanted to come from this is, one thing I want to bear in mind is, if you guys assist us now as a minor house, later on, if any of the houses or the church ever need assistance, this is us basically saying, okay, you've helped us in this situation, we will come and help you in the other situation. And I just want to clarify that this is basically us starting out of, we want to build this good relationship so the houses as a whole and the Empire as a whole can know that we are trying to act as a better unit.
As far as Crux is concerned, we need 1 credit to move or attack. The other 5 credits are available. We can use them to buy more forces for ourselves. That's probably the least likely option for us. We can use them to buy things from Fornax, if Fornax is to build stuff, and we can use them to pay the Deathless. We have 5 credits available. We will use all of them.
To talk about Fornax and buying stuff. So for now, we would be willing to sell 1 strike fleet, but obviously after turn 1, because no one can buy them yet. But the price would be discussed after turn 1.
The other thing is, when you take the use asset action, which you are planning on doing, yes, Fornax?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
When you take the use asset action, there is a level of RNG to the price you pay and and the amount of credits you have. So
yes, we understand that.
It is not completely reliable what you can and can't build, but are you open simply to, when you take the use asset action, buying an asset that Crux will pay you for and then use on turn 2?
Not really. We are not really willing to buy assets ourselves and then giving them to, selling them. We are willing to sell one of our existing...
Yes, so you want to build something for yourself on the first turn, and so you're...
No, the first turn is so for now we have decided. Well, we haven't decided yet. It's still open to vote, but for now the goal is to use assets on the first turn. So
the use asset action, however, allows you to use your pre-tech logistics or something to buy an asset at extra price, but the commodities broker reduces that price.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't buy stuff on the first turn.
So yeah, you're not planning on using your ability. That's fine. In that case, Crux's credits are available to buy the Deathless if Fornax isn't.
For the High Church, we could probably get up to 3 credits. 2 easy, 1 very easy to pay the Deathless.
Very well. Crux has 5.
On a clarifying statement on the unwillingness to sell them, production would be very low at the minute, so we cannot keep up with supply. If people want to buy units off us, we are not selling units.
If you're not selling units, that's fine.
One question about selling units. Do we know that happens completely between turns? Is there like summoning sickness for transferred units?
Yes, summoning sickness is exactly the example Adam used.
Okay, but that is the case for selling units to other factions?
Yes, you buy an asset. Once it's ready to use for you, it's ready to use for other people. You would buy an asset on your turn, you would sell it at the end of your turn, and then it would be usable by the other faction at the next turn.
So let me just present a scenario, and I just want to make sure that this mechanically works. So say Crux moves their Psychic Assassins to Tutham, attacks on turn 2, and then attacks on turn 1. Theoretically, between turns 1 and 2, sells the asset to Houses Minor. Would Houses Minor be able to, on turn 2, move the Psychic Assassins with our Transit Web?
Correct.
Yeah. So we could. Okay. So I'm just throwing out the possibility of if we're worried.
That's the thing we could consider. For example, it's a way that Crux could get an asset to Echo by us moving on the first turn and then you moving on the second turn.
Yeah, or we could rescue your Psychic Assassins.
Psychic Assassins is a force asset and cannot be moved.
Oh, good point. Okay, so yeah, that's irrelevant.
Note on the Strike Fleet. We are discounting the price. You will not be paying full price on the book. We are discounting it.
The prices?
The prices of the Strike Fleet. We will not be paying 15 credits for it. We would enter negotiations, but it would be a discount.
So it is a discount, but you can't say what the price is.
Yeah, no, the price we have to negotiate after turn 1.
Aren't they only 12 credits anyways?
I believe so.
They would be discounted from the price.
The price they will pay will vary because they have to go to brokers and see what they get.
Yeah.
So
the price would be negotiated between the buyer and us. We are open to opening bids on that after turn 1, of course, when people have money to spend.
Crux could potentially buy a strike fleet. We have the force to use it, but we are not considering buying a strike fleet to be at the highest of our capacity. We want to focus on paying the Deathless and buying special forces. Those are our modus operandi.
Sure, we're going to design.
How does Fornax feel about renting a strike
fleet? I believe we're not open to renting because it's it would be just exactly the same as us moving an asset. So,
right, sure.
So, what are the current things that are on the table we could do? We need to start formulating actually what we want to come out of this.
Well, it's what you have in defense of the world, expecting Vagrant to move, and how many assets we commit to attacking preemptively or post movement of their assets on Totem.
One final tactical thing I would like to bring up. That, sorry, this is a bit late. I've been trying to let the conversation flow. Is the proposal from the Church Repentant to attack the Vagrant base, which they are broadly happy to do, and we can integrate that into a larger ongoing strategy.
Ultimately, both the churches are in a position to potentially attack an undefended Vagrant base.
Yeah, we're planning to expand southwards, and in a couple of turns we would be hitting the Vagrant home base, and we'd take it out in a turn or 2.
We obviously want to eliminate the faction. So
I'm sure you understand, as the church, why the other church have expressed concern about you expanding your logistical capacity south.
Yes, we understand their concerns, and we have talked a lot to them, and both in character and out of character motivations, and we didn't have any problems with the other church until you guys came up with this symposium thing, and now we have had some tension, but I don't think there should be any real conflict between the churches at this junction in time, at least.
So ultimately, one thing I want to point out is, from Swansong, my understanding is if we destroy the base of influence on Sean and destroy the faction, I don't remember exactly what happens to the units, but I think they can still
just go.
use them.
They just die. They just disappear, scatter to the four winds. The way it works is...
not convinced that he's going to do that, though.
Yeah, that seems...
Without a ruling, I do not want to rely on
There
that.
was a ruling yesterday.
There was a ruling. Adam won't make the Vagrant not exist in the fiction, or not exist in the show, or not exist in the canon of the universe, but they will not exist in the faction turn. Their units will disappear, their base of influence will disappear.
If you could show that to us, I would be really grateful.
That's fine.
Yeah, that would help to share to our people in our houses as well to alleviate some concerns.
Just to explain to Reticulum, the way it works is your faction has a number of hit points. Any damage done to your base of influence goes to your hit points.
I get
we
that.
Just don't think Adam's going to play it as written.
That's the
Adam
I just
has...
posted the ruling from Adam yesterday. That's what's quoted in.
That does not say that the units will stop existing.
Yeah,
that's true. I'm not the faction rep, so I don't know what else was said in the chat.
That's not good enough for me. I would want a separate rulings question.
I also would want.
To me, it's the logical result of to kill a faction completely, but by all means, ask for a clarification that a faction that dies completely, finger quotes, will lose all of its units that are out there.
That's all I want. Because I think ultimately, unless we get that, I don't think going after Sean ourselves is really of much use, because it'll take us so long to get there that by the time we do, we will probably have killed all of their units or somehow managed to die.
Going after Sean is an important and vital thing for us to talk about in another Imperial meeting, not this one.
Yeah, in 3 months.
Is my opinion.
All right, so ultimately, So I think we've all agreed that there is the only offensive action we're likely to take is going to be moving Psychic Assassins from Crux to Tootham. I don't think the miners are going to be particularly interested in going aggressive like that.
We feel it's our best play. We know for a fact they'll have already left Tootham because we are the last move. It allows us 5 credits to pay the Deathless, and the only other thing is just taking a hard gamble. Everyone's we think we're definitely going here, and we just move the Psychic Assassins there and give Adam the order, if Vagrant on this world, hit them.
The only other alternative, I would say, is since Church knows they're going first, if Church was open to... Oh, they've got the transit, so they can't attack. Never mind. Yeah, so I don't think we would want, as a whole, to put any more units on Tootham than those Psychic Assassins.
Yeah, I would add that the good and safe thing about this plan is that the Assassins do not need to unstealth themselves if Vagrant turns out not to be there. They're safe on Tootham if nothing ends up happening.
We can just leave them stealthed on Tootham and move them elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we could, but I don't think there's any situation in which we would give Adam the order to attack and they wouldn't.
Yeah, they'd hit the post-tech. Yeah, you're right. I don't know why I said that. They'd hit the post-tech industry anyway.
If we decide to attack, they're being unstealthed no matter what. Because either the industry or the transit net's going to be there.
We can then move them away.
Influence and stay.
Then we just won the game. That is the actual best possible scenario. Because their advantage right now is that they have the jump on us, essentially. We're spread out and we need time.
Respond, then they lose their momentum.
Yeah, by all means, it's important to consider all considerations, but we also kind of have to assume that our opponents will play the game with at least some level of proficiency.
Yeah.
So can I just be clear here? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go
ahead. Can I just be clear here? Because I think I've missed a little something. So is Crux's plan to send the Psychic Assassins to Tootham only insofar as nowhere else has been attacked? Or is that...
Yes, what we will do is, before we know where they're going, what we can do is just move to their world and just knock out their industry or knock out their transit net. knocking out the transit net is quite valuable, because what they can do with the transit net is they can attack a world and then switch on. Yes. Anyway, the point being, Crux will totally move the Psychic Assassins away, just leaving a dead industry or a transit net on half HP to defend worlds that need defending. We are not saying once the Psychic Assassins are onto them, they must stay there until they win.
I mean, we may not be saying that, but if we're at the point where we're defending a world of Psychic Assassins, we're in fucking bad shape. Because Psychic Assassins suck at defending.
They don't have a counterattack.
And they have 4 HP.
We potentially have grab tanks, though. That's the thing.
Crux has grab tanks.
The problem with grab tanks is that
Deathless grab tanks.
The Deathless, we know that since Crux goes last, the Deathless will attack first. And the grab tanks, at best, because of the post-tech industry, will kill a post-tech industry.
That's still a good result.
It's still not a bad result, but we're like, there is no reasonable way in which we can kill. I mean, there's a reasonable way, but it's almost certainly not going to be.
With that said, I might advise that Crux pays the Deathless to move a grav tank to Lovelace, and we start distributing units to defend various worlds.
The defensive posture is what Triangle prefers. We want to cover everybody's asses the best that we can. Renting both tanks would give us the greatest ability to do that, especially in a situation where the Church is not interested in blocking for us and Fornax is not that interested in blocking for us on turn 1. So we need to make more judicious use of the assets we can rent or move. And I think a defensive posture makes the most sense given that.
I mean, we could in principle move our demagogue to Loveless. We could do the use asset ability on turn 1. There's nothing. We were planning on doing that on turn 2, and it doesn't really matter what order we do it in. But I don't know what one lone demagogue could do on
a lot.
It's full counterattack. It's a 10 HP unit. Lovelace has no units on it right now with damage. It's all factories.
So
Aomori has no units at all, and that's another place where we need to put something.
So something that's probably worth discussing is, while we're doing this, do we want to just write out each house in Imperial Council, write out what units and where they are that you guys are willing to kind of contribute to the general defensive effort? Obviously, the Psychic Assassins we can kind of discount because they're going on offense.
Also, write down like how many credits you're willing to provide for the Deathless and whatnot.
Yeah, and I mean willing and able to supply to another
Crux.
world this turn on turn 1.
Crux can move it tanks. All we need to do is have Fornax build an extended theatre, which we will pay for, and then we can move the tanks to any Imperial core world. The only worlds we cannot defend with grav tanks is Lodestone, which we hope moves out of the way, and Lovelace, which we get the Deathless. That would be a turn 2 thing.
I'm saying explicitly on turn 1. What are the units that we have? Basically, what are the units that we have at our disposal to play with?
In terms of defending worlds, they need defending.
Yeah.
So speaking of Lodestone moving, an important thing that Pixis needs established is we need to decide which direction we're going in. And we think we will either go to 0604 or 0703. And that largely depends on whether we will be taking, whether we run the risk of taking a large contingent or even just one vagrant asset with us. And then, well, one is fine, really.
If you take vagrant
if we risk taking more than one vagrant asset with us to 0703 and taking a large amount of damage if we do that. And if that's the case, we may as well go to 0604 so he can get within range of the transit web as soon as possible.
I think unless anyone has strong inclinations as to what the Vagrant's turn order is, then they should share those, but unless that's the case, I think you should I feel pretty strongly you should move to 0604. 0703 is so risky.
It's only risky if none of the major houses are willing, especially if Valor is unwilling to to place an asset on Lodestone for a turn to give us the requisite security that would defend us against an all-out vagrant attack.
I just don't know if one asset's going to be enough if they move all 4 assets onto you.
If they move all 4 assets onto us, we probably die. Unless the entire empire is
there is
on
no
Lodestone.
way they're going to dump everything at
Exactly.
Lodestone.
Yeah.
It's not something worth planning for. We're worried more about 2 to 3 assets.
In the case of
If anything, they're gonna dump everything on Lovelace. It's more probable that
or
it'll be that.
Mori, or
It's highly likely their target is Lovelace just because of what the understanding is.
Also, I think Almori is about the same likelihood for an all-out attack as Lodestone.
Yeah, but the difference between Lovelace, Omori, and did I not say Lovelace, Omori, and Lodestone is that Omori is quite literally slap bang in between all the Imperial planets, and it will be so easy to move stuff there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they all attack Aomori, we can literally pretty much anything that we have straight onto them.
I'm not overly concerned with that. For Lodestone, I would recommend moving Lodestone out of Vagrant's range. We don't think they're going to move all your stuff to you, and if they do move some stuff to you, both Crux and Vela can assist.
Yeah, I'm much a bigger fan of having Lodestone out of the range of Vagrant, and then if we still need to on turn 2 when we're in the midst of using a bunch of acid abilities, because
you cut out there, Vela.
So yeah, I realize.
I think something that concerns me is that we can only move Lodestone as a faction. We use assets, right?
Correct.
Right, and that's why like for our first turn we're.
Can I get a confirmation from Pixis on that? Because I trust them to know that.
That is correct. Yes, we move as essentially as an asset.
So I think there's a very reasonable likelihood that we might be attacking or buying on turn 2. And I'm very concerned that if we move you guys to 0703, it's just going to take so long to get you guys in transit web range that it's terrifying.
Well, the only thing I wanted to say before my phone didn't seem to want to register my input is that we are very likely using asset abilities on turn 2, which means we'll be using the covert transit net. We'll be using our surveyors. We'll be using our preceptor archive, which apparently can be used as an asset ability per atom. So there's a bunch of things that we're going to be doing on turn 2 all at once. So ideally, that would be the turn we'd prefer to move our stuff, which means we'd be more likely in turn 1 to be a paying faction and responsive since we're so early in the turn. But this is just from how the House Vela has voted, because they've been voting according to more in-character action than out of character. So it's, take it as you will. We're after that preceptor archive.
What is it?
Turn 1 action again?
Yeah.
Vela goes second, right after the church.
What
are you doing?
Turn 1 action again?
Right now, the highest votes are for expanding influence to use the surveyors on 700 to get Urgus. But like I said, the action that gets voted on will be put in a vote against whatever the council would like us to consider. The reason for that being is that's in character. That's what Vela wants is more info.
I've got 2 things to say about it. Crux also was considering expanding influence. It's why it's our goal. We're ready to do it. However, Crux has abandoned that plan. Crux is going to be defending the Empire first, and we would like to ask Vela to make the same sacrifice.
Both in and out of character, I think I speak for all of the Houses Minor when I say that if Vela chooses to pursue their goal rather than defend against the pirate threat, that is kind of not that cool.
No, I understand. No, I understand that. I'm just like, there's a lot of House Vela that aren't paying attention to faction turns necessarily and are more playing in character.
But even in character.
So it's.
But in character, defending the Empire makes more sense than.
I know, but I understand that, guys. I do. I'm trying to say that, like, it's one of those things where a lot of the votes came through pretty heavily before people realized that X or Y or Z was a threat. Some of them have changed their ideas, but not everybody is being convinced, or some people have voted and stepped away or what have you. So that's why if we do vote something like expand influence, that's not going to be what we necessarily do. We're still going to say, hey guys, here's what the council, has suggested. Here's what we were also thinking based on the circumstances. And then we have a final vote, which is why we have a 2-vote system.
Okay.
Is to make sure that in the event that something is voted that turns out isn't going to work out very well within our houses, we still have ourselves a net to catch ourselves with.
That's fine. Can I make the other thing I was about to say, which is that Crux definitely advises that you try to move Lodestone out of Vagrant's range rather than into your transit web range. We think that's just a much better idea for you.
And Vela, I think, feels the same way.
Can I elaborate?
Well, you see, our concern is that we will be crippled if we are, because second guessing Vagrant is very difficult. So we don't really know what they're going to do. And one of the not entirely unlikely possibilities is that they will send a reasonable force to try and capture Lodestone. And the current plan seems to be to allow Lodestone to be mauled and then saved, but ultimately crippled.
We have a plan in order, in the case that they go all on Lodestone and then Lodestone moves to 0703, what we will do is we will try to get an extended theatre and basically jump grab tanks onto Lodestone.
That's way too slow.
And, it depends on initiative.
No, it doesn't.
We could die in that time.
Yeah,
it'll take 2 turns.
We need units honestly, on there on the start of turn 2.
Yeah, considering the apparent unwillingness of both Crux and Vela to move units to Pixis on turn 1, I cannot endorse.
I'm not unwilling.
Hang on, please don't say unwillingness. That I'm explaining that the House currently had an intention with their plan.
I said apparent.
And yeah, I want to clarify that we basically were talking about what is our plans. We set up a nice long-term plan. So a lot of people are still voting on that long-term plan without realizing that, hey, there's an inherent danger. We've tried to make that as apparent as possible, but without the, hey guys, like every other house is like screaming at you guys.
I'm not trying to cast aspersions on either house for what they want to do. I'm just saying that given that information, Pixis has to move towards the web because it's their best chance of being saved on turn 2.
It's true. So we would prefer to leave the range of the transit net. But if there's the risk of us leaving the range of the transit net, carrying a bunch of vagrants with us, it's not a tenable option.
Well, I was going to say, I could have swore there's a place that you can move that stays within our covert transit net, but out of vagrant range, where we move our demagogue and possibly additional.
It's 0703. The risk is that vagrant comes with us first.
Let me clear this up. So if I think from the house's
I'm talking about this turn. I'm not talking about next turn.
Yeah. So if we want Lodestone to move to 0703, then this turn there has to be just like significant defensive assets moved there. So probably at least a demagogue and maybe another unit.
We're not even necessarily requesting significant. What we need is assurance that if a vagrant asset jumps on us and
we just don't have
we are
time.
under serious threat, Crux can send the psychic assassins, or it's not really feasible for us to ask Vela to do something simply because of we can't rely on their democratic process turning out the way we need it to.
Crux will 100% support Lodestone if it's attacked. Like we can move from Twinfin to Lodestone immediately as soon as we see vagrant alpha units. We're open to moving the psychic assassins to Lodestone on turn 1 if everyone really urges us to. We didn't think it was the best option, but we are open to it.
Here's a super gamey solution. Since we're turn order 1, if you give us control over Lodestone, we could just move it.
I appreciate the joke, but I don't want this meeting to last 4 hours.
I also think mechanically that it's not allowed.
A less silly solution is that the church have offered to potentially move 1 demagogue. What if the church moved a single demagogue to Lodestone and you moved Lodestone away from vagrant? The church has extra defense against cunning attacks, so the church's demagogue is going to be highly effective against defending.
It would be pretty
way too far away.
They actually can't reach us, I think.
Yeah, it's not even close.
Oh, my mistake. I thought the church was on prime for some reason. That's Fornax's position. That's fine.
Yeah, the only assets right now that can get to Lodestone in time to be defensive on turn 2 are Velas and the Psychic Assassins.
Yes. So, Psychic Assassins can do it. They are not the best defensive options. So Vela's demagogue is the best option to do that.
If I can ask that, Vela, do you just obviously you're not speaking for your house, but in your general opinion, do you think your house would be willing to accept moving both the party machine and demagogue to Lodestone?
They can't move both, can they? Oh yeah, they can. Party machines are a special
position. Oh yeah, we can. But okay, based on the people who are most active, who most of them.
You're going robot again.
Yeah, we're cutting out.
Okay, hang on.
So while he fixes it, I just want to mention for House Fornax, it's not that we are not willing to help. I just want to say that our cunning is very low. We have one of the most low cunnings of all the factions, and so even with our strike fleets, we are pretty much useless against the Vagrants because they have cunning.
Precisely that reason why my idea for Fornax is to protect the Omikado, which is only under threat from the UPC.
So about that, I wanted to add also that it's not that we're not willing to move assets, it's just that we have not voted on it yet. So it would have to go through a vote in the Senate first before we can agree on anything.
So I'd like to reiterate, Crux can move Psychic Assassins to defend Lodestone. It would be suicide, they die, but we're totally willing to just sacrifice Psychic Assassins to buy time for reinforcements.
I think it's a much better idea to, if Vela is open to it, and obviously we'd have to wait back and hear from them. I think it would be much better to, oh no, you can't move Party Machine. It's the fucking counter intel you can use.
It's special forces.
Well,
the ideal
Party
is
Machine's logistics.
Vela, I think.
Yeah, like okay, the reason I was elected Raja and the reason that Nagi was elected Rani is because we do echo the voice of Vela fairly well, and that's why I do feel if moving an asset to defend a location is what is required, we have no issues with doing that. I do say that we do have a non-active amount, about half, about 50%, that are more likely to say, I want to do the base of influence thing. Now, right now, we've convinced what I feel like is most of the active people that we're probably going to need to change to do something defensive, but just wanting to notify you guys, like...
Yeah, that's fine.
So it sounds like, realistically, the defensive asset we can get on Lodestone is a Demagogue right now.
Well, that would essentially be the Rani and Raha personally visiting Pixis and being badasses. Essentially is what in character it would be looking like.
Is that something Pixis would have a problem with?
I think IC would be pretty on board with that, so long as, I mean, basically out of character, we need some reasonable degree of assurance that Vela will leave at some point, but that also seems like the kind of thing they would do naturally.
Because ultimately...
Kind of silly for them to stay around if they're not needed.
Ultimately, that gives us 26 HP of defense on Lodestone. It's not mathematically impossible for Lodestone to die then, but it's pretty fucking...
So.
And also
have decent counterattack.
Yeah, exactly.
So. Yeah, and also you got to remember that we're defending against a possibility. Pixis just needs to know that we're largely safe.
You know what? I'm going to be quite honest. If Vela wasn't going second, I think everybody would be on board with defending Lodestone 100%. It's just there's a non-vocal amount of Vela that have been putting in conversations that if we move something somewhere and nothing there happens, they get uppity about the fact that we could essentially waste a turn. Now I'm talking out of character here because that's just how some people are, is they don't want to waste turns, they want to be as efficient as possible. But in character, I totally want to support Pixis as best I can. But something
I want to throw out is, and you might want to mention this to people, like the fact that you're going second doesn't really affect anything this turn, since nothing, like there is virtually no attacks that are going to be happening this turn.
Apart from the factions that move and attack simultaneously, the initiative is somewhat irrelevant. Also, I'd like to point out, someone said that Fornax should defend against the UPC. The UPC are going to attack with cunning as well. Fornax is the problem with Fornax is that they have the weak stat that is going to be attacked. Although they have lots of assets, although they're well defended, although they have lots of hit points, most attacks will be hitting them. They've got like an 80% hit rate.
This is the only thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is one of the points I wanted to bring up on the idea of if we have assistance now, we can easily just as much assist Fornax when it comes to cunning. Because even us as a minor house, we can also say like, oh, we can send something onto Fornax to say, you can't defend cunningly, we will put something that's a cunning thing to attack whatever's trying to attack you.
Mm-hmm.
Pixis especially, once the covert transit net's down, we're very willing to move to a nice secure position and then just send the popular movement off to defend where necessary or attack where necessary. It's not, just having it there for the sake of it seems silly to us.
I don't think we should leave, even though there's nothing important on Imperial Prime at the moment, I do not think we should leave that planet undefended. Because if Vagrant moves in and tries to seize the government, that's going to be quite embarrassing for
There
us.
is no government there.
Out of character, I think it would be quite a cool story beat.
Yeah, like
It would take
Imperial
them
Prime
3
is.
turns to seize the planet. We'd be able to respond in time to stop them.
No,
And
no,
we
they
also
seize the planet
always-
immediately, but like it takes them 3 turns to gain the planetary government.
Yeah, we would definitely wreck them on the next turn.
And we also have, we have units there already. And so
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, I don't have the rules up in front of me. If you seize planet, then is it like the base of, do you have to have a base of influence there first?
No, you need to destroy all enemy assets and then remain on, and then you have seized the planet. And then if you, for 3 turns, remain with your assets on the planet after destroying all enemy units, you then become the planetary government tag.
Yeah, so they could, if they were to send everything onto Imperial Prime on turn 1, on turn 2, it's very likely that there would be, at minimum, a demagogue and a strike fleet there.
Yeah,
And that's assuming worst case. Best case is we would flood some more units on there. That would be a suicide mission which they can do no damage.
As long as we keep the assets already on Imperial Prime is not to be worried about. However, I would counsel against moving all those assets off Imperial Prime and just being like, lol, Imperial Prime's not really a thing, there's no faction there, there's no assets there. It has symbolic value, it has character value, it has RP value, and Vagrant will consider just attacking Imperial Prime, because that's a big fictional good thing to do.
Sure, fictionally it makes sense, but
Rome.
mechanically it would be, mechanically it's too well defended already. It's not something
Yes.
we need to worry about.
The current defense is fine. If that defense stays, that's adequate. I'm saying don't move all of the units
I would not
off of
move
Imperial
anything
Prime.
away. If we were going to
There's
move the
also
strike fleet, it would be
Prism.
off of Fornax.
There's a Prism Demagogue on Imperial Prime, which is a wild card.
Oh, yeah, so that's even more. There's no way they're going to do Imperial Prime. That would be suicide. Suicide without any upside.
Yeah, but is that not a Vagrant's thing, though? Because that wouldn't surprise me, really.
I think they would rather do some damage than attack a bunch of... I think they want to do, faction damage, not asset damage.
Yeah,
I
maybe.
for a fact know that they want to be in the fiction. They don't really care about the mechanics of the game as much as they care about being in the fiction.
I'm sure some of them care about the mechanic.
Yes, it's to some extent, but if Vagrant really, really cared about the mechanics rather than the story, they wouldn't have deployed all their units on Toifum.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, and
so-
ultimately, Imperial Prime is as defended as it needs to be.
I agree. I agree
If
with that.
we want to move there and suicide everything, that's fine, but we don't need to prepare anymore for that.
Yeah, but the point is we could potentially move our Demagogue from Imperial Prime to Loveless. And
Yeah, but in that case, it would be undefended because we are very low on cunning, and the High Church, is the only faction who has cunning
wouldn't
assets
move it
on Prime. So
Would you-
I don't know if it's a good thing.
I would
to do.
much more recommend moving the commodities broker off of SIG than
Would
anything off of Imperial Prime.
would Fornax not consider moving their strike fleet from Imperial Prime to?
So yeah, I mentioned it earlier.
Yeah,
we would be willing, but
it's not a guarantee.
It's got to go through a vote. Yeah,
That's fine. It's not a guarantee.
We have
The
to
point
vote on
being,
it.
Triangulum's suggestion on that was quite good because honestly, a single church demagogue is a reasonable defense against Vagrant on Imperial Prime. I would want to leave Imperial Prime empty.
That's
it's
where
worth, I
we're
would-
willing to
that's-
discuss it.
If we were going to move a strike fleet, I think it would make more sense to move a strike fleet off of Maja than off of Imperial Prime.
We are not
Yeah.
leaving our planet undefended.
Fornax
not
wants to
undefended.
defend Marja.
Yeah, we don't want to get.
know,
just
you have-
We would also be in
Commodities
favor
brokers.
of
is a
leaving
good
their
counter.
industry safe. Yes.
My-
Just saying, telling the home planet of Marja, hey, can you move your ship off there? Not a good idea. Not a good idea
Yeah.
at all.
My suggestion to
Uh-huh.
Fornax would be potentially move your ship off of Imperial Prime, but keep your defenses on your home world as they are.
We will definitely vote on that, and we will keep you updated.
Can we get a definitive where we think the best place for them to move from Imperial Prime is? Would it be
Diamicado for sure?
Diamicado,
yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
Mikasa.
In that case, can you take to Fornax that the Imperial Council generally recommends you leave your defenses on Marja? They are. We'll reinforce you if you need it, and that you move your Imperial Prime strike fleet to Diamicado. Is everyone
we will.
happy saying that Fornax should take that to vote?
Yeah, that's a
We
vote,
will.
and we're currently voting on it.
The added important information there is that it takes the UPC a turn to move, and we can move web assets and attack with them the same turn. So if the UPC does move on Diamicado to attack the strike fleet, we can respond with the Book of Secrets and or Commodities Broker and attack with them the same turn.
And we can buy the strike fleet, and then we have the cunning advantage.
Exactly.
Yes.
So there's not that much risk for the strike fleet, and we're probably going to buy it from you anyway. And that if this whole thing happens.
Especially, it's worth mentioning that it's unlikely the UPC will attack on turn 1 just because of their goal.
Right.
It's impossible.
It's impossible. They cannot.
Good point. Yes. What I mean is they won't set up to attack on turn 1.
Yeah.
No, they'll probably just keep moving around so they can keep getting their goal. And never.
We would assume that the UPC is going to spend 2 turns achieving their goal, and then from turn 3 maybe a threat.
Strike fleets don't have upkeep cost, right?
Only Capital Fleet, Scavenger Fleet, and only 8 assets, eight requirement assets have upkeeps.
Yeah, so I think we can say if we're going to get a unit from Fornax, it's going to be a strike fleet on Diamicado.
Yeah, sounds reasonable.
I know it's not on the docket, but has anyone heard word from the 14 Red Dogs? I noticed that they're not on the agenda, but they are a threat.
They are a threat, but due to the fact that they have positioned their covert transit net very deep in their own territory, they are not a threat to us immediately.
And they are stealth, so...
Okay.
If the thing we were worried about was both Vagrant and 14 Red Dogs simultaneously deploying on Typhon. That's what Crux expected to be the worst case scenario, and we're happy that Typhon, because it is the best attack staging point, only has a single enemy faction on it and not also the 14 Red Dogs.
Yeah, functionally 14 Red Dogs is not relevant for the first turn just because of where their transit net is.
Okay.
We do have limited intel that suggests they might be working with Vagrant.
If you see in the doc, we have a image of everyone's threat ranges, and you can see that the 14 Red Dogs cannot really threaten much of what we're worried about.
Okay, thank you. Crux, on the issue of buying a extended theatre for you, we are voting on that as well.
Yes, it's a thing. Ultimately, if we were to build it on Hyra, we can defend much of the core. If we were to build it on Marja and buy it off you, we would be able to use it the same time we bought it, and we would be able to defend the entire Imperial core.
Very well, I should take that to the house.
Okay, so we've decided where a strike fleet for Fornax would go if we use it. We've decided where a demagogue from Vela would go if we use it. And we've decided ultimately where the Psychic Assassins for Crux would go if we were to use them. So we've also said that we don't think we're going to move the Demagogue off the Imperial Prime. That leaves one more movable defensive asset, which is the Commodities Broker on SIG. Is that something the Church has any willingness to move?
I mean, we would vote on it. I guess it would go to Loveless, right?
Maybe.
Well, at this point,
I don't see us...
there's a whole Western theater we need to cover, right? Heroa, Tiber, Aomori, and Lovelace. And we have a certain number of assets to cover them with. The web can ball some of them up for us if we spend enough on it. So there's some wiggle room here on how we distribute things, and we should try to find an optimal configuration if we can.
I think the general understanding is we will almost certainly move Space Marines to Aomori.
Yep.
Although we could technically move them to Heroa as well if we felt that was
because
better.
we can rent Deathless to go to Aomori also.
Yeah.
So by moving Space Marines to Heroa, that frees up the Book of Secrets to move around, which would be excellent.
Yeah, we could potentially move like a manufactory. I mean, we could just leave the 2 manufactories on Lovelace as more HP.
If nothing else goes to Heroa to block for them, and we can find a way to justify it in fiction somehow, as far as I know, Triangulum is willing to trade a factory off for the Book of Secrets to come on. Because moving the factories away from, well, at least one of the factories away from Lovelace means that we won't lose them both. And just one factory is a big enough meat shield against the UPC for Serpents.
I'm just
So
worried.
Serpents is just in general very hesitant about letting the Book of Secrets move.
I understand that. We would give it back.
We'd have to discuss that.
Okay. But the problem's not about accepting the factory, it's more about losing the book.
It's more about losing the book. If we got something to replace it in terms of mate shielding or defense, we'd probably be a lot more happy letting it go.
A factory is 16 HP.
I feel like it may. So, like, let's consider the possibility that Vagrant dumps everything onto Lovelace. I would feel a little bit more comfortable with 2 factories to be able to split the damage to minimize the chance that either of them die.
We want to be ready for the occasion they drop everything on Lovelace.
Yeah, that's the one I'm like, I want that to be handled as best as possible.
Yeah, I think that was for Vela. Like, we're kind of gearing towards the expectation that they're probably going after Lovelace.
Yeah, like I would be comfortable, and obviously pending everyone else, with 2 manufactories and a Book of Secrets on Lovelace, the Space Marines on
and
Broa,
a grav tank on Lovelace, potentially.
Yeah, potentially, and a rented grav tank on Amori instead, and then the existing unit on Tiber.
In the case of an all-out attack on Lovelace, what Crux can do is just give you the Psychic Assassins, and then you can move them from Totham to Lovelace to defend and attack.
No, they're a force unit. We can't move them with the
you've got Transit Web. Oh, in that case, we would have to give them to Vela.
Well, they would be
Vela can't move Lovelace either. We could give them to the Church. Is who
you would?
No,
you would just leave them and kill the Silver Transit Net. Yeah, you
there's
just
special
leave them
forces.
there.
Yeah, we could move them.
Oh yeah, we can work that out.
We could also build Cyber Ninjas, which we can give you, and we could build Lawyers, which we could give you.
Right, but that would take a little while.
I mean, we can. So I think basically, if we want, we can throw the Book of Secrets on. Like, we can effectively trade the Book of Secrets for Space Marines mechanically. Obviously, Serpents would need to sign off on that, but I think that's our best defensive posture. And then get rented grav tanks.
Ultimately, Crux has one other option, which is we spend our first turn building a Special Forces, and then we can give that Special Forces to another faction while we move our Psychic Assassins, and it'll be more reactive. We'll have 2 to react with rather than 1 to be proactive.
We would much rather that you were on hand to defend places turn 1, just because there's so many potential targets for Vagrant.
Yeah, I think the best move is to start attacking Totham with the Psychic Assassins.
We do as well. We're just saying, like, these are the other options. Let's explore those and make sure that everyone agrees that what we internally decided was probably the best move is the best move.
If Crux can move their tanks, we would be talking about moving them in a defensive position, because all they have are Psychic Assassins. It really just makes the most sense for them to try to attack onto them.
So do we want to take like a 5-minute recess here and then write up? Because I think we've reached a theoretical best case for what we want to do. Just like take 5 minutes, write it up.
There's a lot of people who aren't talking. I want to make sure that we've heard all viewpoints before we move to a break.
Lyra's fine. Lyra's just been chilling, listening to everything, and thank you so much for being very clear and polite to one another.
Yeah, Eridanus is all good with this. I'm just listening in, making sure everything's going to plan.
If we do, for some reason, change gears and decide we want to move the commodities broker around either to defend or attack, how would Eridanus feel about that? We would leave something else in its place, like a factory, for example, to act as a shield.
Wait, can you repeat what you just said? Your audio cut out so hard for me just then.
Sorry, if for some weird reason, we're not talking about it now, but if for some weird reason we wanted to move the commodities broker on Tiber somewhere else, how would Eridanus feel about that? We would obviously leave something else in its place to act as a shield.
If there was something else in the place, it would be something to consider, alright, but it's also something we want to consider it as it is.
It's not mechanically optimal right now, but something else could change that makes it.
I feel like that needs to come back at a later date once we have more considerations. Right now, it's just considering what do we want to do on turn 1, because turn 1's the thing that's coming up, so we need to figure out what is our best protocols for turn 1.
I did still mean turn 1, but again, I think it's on.
No, I meant our best protocols for turn 1. I mean, I understand wanting to consider it as a whole. Just this point in time is something. Commander's Burger is not something we've considered moving yet as a whole. I haven't seen any discussion, so I would have to go back to Eridanus for that.
So, since obviously the House is minor, as I'm sure you guys are aware, cannot really unilaterally decide on these things. I think if we are comfortable with kind of what we discussed, maybe we take either a 5 or 10-minute recess. The House's Miner can kind of write up what we think is the conclusion we've reached, and we can reconvene, make sure that it looks right, and then we can break to kind of take it to our individual factions and discuss it and get any tweaks. We can also approach the Deathless and see what they're going to charge us.
I'd just like to reiterate, by all means, share the document that Crux made of all the potential options of like Deathless and Vagrant and such, and ourselves with your factions. That is permitted, as well as Crux's 13th initiative position is also permitted to internally share within your factions.
Okay. So do we want to take a 10-minute recess then and come back with the document written?
That's fine.
Will the non-aggression pact be on the table once the break ends?
Sure.
Okay.
If we have time to talk about it, I don't see why not.
Actually, a quick question. There was a discussion of sending Space Marines to Hoa and the Book of Secrets to Lovelace. Was there any particular reason why we can't just get the Space Marines straight to Lovelace? Is it a range problem?
The Marines cannot move with the transit web. They're a force asset. They can only move one space from where they are now on Diomikado. So they can only go to Aomori, Tiber, or Hroa, and Aomori. Basically, we have the Space Marines, a rented grav tank, the brokers, and the Book of Secrets, and however many factories we want to move around to cover those 4 worlds. So there's a couple of options, but moving the book is one of the good ones. And giving you the Space Marines, obviously.
Okay. Because we're having a slight discussion in Serpent's back chat about whether or not we can move, allow the Book of Secrets to get moved, and that just came up for clarification purposes.
Right. I mean, so if you're having trouble fictionalizing it, imagine what a hard time we're having with the factories. One of the things.
Well, there's already a fictionalization, fictional excuse. Okay. We have a deal going on with Triangulum right now, which involves an exchange of information.
That's true. So
it's just a matter of whether or not Hro was offended or not, and explaining it to the other people in the group chat.
This is a minor house thing rather than an Imperial house thing, so I think this is something we need to come back to.
That sounds good. It does affect overall strategy, but it does sound like something we can work out on our own.
Yeah. Anyway, let's take that break.
Yeah, minor people, do you want to just hop up so we can deal with this document real quick?
Yeah, I was going to say, the break will help me get home, because I'm just in the middle of biking home during this, so making things a bit
harder. Hardcore, man.
Wow.
Your audio quality is really good for being on a bike.
Yeah, it's actually quite phenomenal. I'm pretty impressed with it.
Okay, I'm gonna hop up.
This is impressive.
Amazing. I'll see y'all up in other chat.
Cool. See you in a bit.
Yeah, see you.
So does everyone have non-aggression treaties with Acre?
Nope.
Possibly, but we'll see.
I don't think we have discussed anything about it.
I'll be open about this. Vale is currently considering one so that we can buy something from them. So that we could have a free base of influence on Acre's planet, but that's because we might want to put something down on there, and they're willing to let us do it.
Okay. Yeah, I thought they sort of reached out to everyone. I was under that impression.
I definitely think they're trying to. It definitely sounds like they're trying to.
I'm just worried if the UPC decides to not go after their natural enemy Acre, and Acre just turtles up, then they're gonna be quite the threat.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Yeah, I'm going to say this when people come back, but most of the active Valens right now are pretty okay with moving stuff to Lodestone, but it's still a bit of a hard sell for some of them, which is making it more difficult.
Yeah, your faction is split on whether to move assets to Lodestone or drop a base of influence.
Correct. Yeah, that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
Because like the active ones are like, yeah, of course we should definitely defend things, but like at the same time they're like, but base of influence to make things 2 fat creds cheaper, like, because once we start doing that, shit gets really good for us. Because when we use assets on turn 2, we can move and defend and do anything really with the surveyors and the preceptor archive and all that stuff.
Understood. You're still in decision. Crux has internally dropped its idea of dropping a base of influence on the first turn. We were only going to do that if the Empire didn't need defending, and it does.
And for the most part, Vale is the same way. But there's enough people that have voted to still do it out after the fact that we were like, hey, we should defend this stuff. That I'm just like, guys, just You gotta love being a democracy. It's the only time I don't like not having a specific person who can just say, yep, this is what we're doing. But whatever.
As for the church, I mean, the guy who is most into doing tactics, what he put it so nicely was that he didn't want us to play Vagrant Whack-A-Mole for a bunch of turns. So I think that's our biggest thing at the moment.
Once you have broken the initial surge, it will become Vagrant Whack-A-Mole, and at that point the church's time is probably better spent going for Shan and removing Vagrant from the board than...
Well, I mean, even right now, Church of Humanity Repentant, they want to go block Shan right now, and they want Vela support. So we're talking about that with them too, but...
So the CHR would be willing to attack Vagrants with the support of Vela.
Right now they are.
Huh.
It's something I don't count on, but it would be very helpful. I think
they are currently being threatened by us, and attacking Vagrants is the only thing that's honestly going to keep them alive.
Yeah.
So.
And I was going to say, like, out of character, there's a bunch of people who are friends out of the game in CHR and in Vela, so it's kind of one of those. We just want to make sure both teams are playing the game for as long as possible. But yeah,
so there is collusion between you.
Yeah, to a degree. Definitely to a degree, out of character. How much, I don't know for sure, but I know at least 3 people.
Heretics. Write it.
This is out of character. Get the fuck out of here.
You know, I think a lot of people joined the High Church hoping we would be able to do some exterminados, and if you just give us the opportunity...
Yeah, I want to see you guys try and exterminate Vela. That'd be so funny. Like, I'm talking out of character, obviously. I think it'd be funny to see. But, like, out of character, like, Adam pops in and is like, here's all these things that I'm going to tell you about eventually. I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah, and we have this whole thing with the Serpent's Assassin pending, and we're not allowed to do anything about it. And we asked him a bunch of questions, and he's like, yeah, I have some things planned about that in the future, so just hold off for now. And yeah, that's...
Oh yeah, no, that's the biggest tease.
We have to go around telling everyone that our prince should be on the throne, but if people ask us why, Adam has not given us any permission to make up lore about the prince, so we just have to go, he's great, we love our prince, he's really good, just trust us, he's really great. And we can't answer any questions because Adam's like, he's my NPC, he's going to be special, he's going to be important. I want to make things up about him. I haven't made my mind up yet. And so we just have to go, the prince is great. And they're like, what color is his hair? His hair is great. Unless he's bold. His boldness would be great too.
That's a great color. He's got a great, perfectly cue ball head. It's perfect. It's a cue ball baldness.
No. We can't definitively say the shape of his head or whether or not he even has one.
No. Just the baldness is cue ball like. It's not that he's cue ball headed. It's just
the way you describe him though really makes him seem like a synth.
I mean that's intentional. I'm pretty sure.
Honestly,
are you sure? Because like the perfect prince definitely is a synth. Like it's just
yeah. If Adam
talking out of character,
Prince is actually a synth, that would be the greatest thing ever.
I feel that Adam is throwing out I feel it would be too obvious at this point. I feel Adam
too obvious.
You know when someone is going, ooh, maybe this is the case, huh? Whereas if it actually was the case, they wouldn't mention it. Exactly. I think Adam has been way too wink, wink, nudge, nudge, such that I think it's probably not the case.
And I'm totally happy to play into that. That sounds fun to me.
Yeah.
Here's this perfect person who is infallible in every way. I'm like, okay, there's a failing somewhere. Holy shit, I hope I get home before this storm.
But yeah, as soon as Adam tells us anything about the prince whatsoever, it would be a lot easier for us to tell people why they should like put him on the throne and why he's great. Because currently, why he's great is because he's great. It's just tautology all the way down. We just have to say he's good because he's good because he's good. Look at how good he is because of his goodness.
Look at his good. His good is amazing. Just give it a lick. Oh, it tastes just like raisin.
We cannot confirm or deny the taste of his good.
It tastes just like synth now. Ooh, that's heresy.
Nice.
Did you think so? Well, I shouldn't show you.
So I just want to say that your talks about Acre, we obviously talked about it internally, and I think this this discussion like went sideways because people now are talking of fields of fire. This is a bit concerning.
The funny part is, for us, Acre is a plan B. What we really wanted was to get the High Church to sell us like a covert transit net or something in the long term. But I mean, we haven't really been able to talk with the High Church like much, except for the council here. So it's like one of those things where we're like, in case the High Church says no, let's like talk to Acre, and Acre's like, we'll let you build a base of influence. We'll sell you a false front, and you can flip it to whatever you want. And we're like, that's not a bad deal at all.
I mean, we are planning on building a transit web with pre-tech researchers at some point, and after that, maybe you can buy our net.
Well, I was going to say that the only thing that kind of dampened that was the fact that you can't use multiple covert transit nets to move one asset. You can only do.
Yeah, you have to use different movement.
Yeah, you have to use like web to net to whatever, but yeah. So
yeah, because the double transit web is would have been pretty hilarious otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. So that document I just posted, I believe that is a summary of the best case if everything we agreed on here was enacted by the faction turn. Those are the moves that we would make that are relevant to each other. Obviously, you may have other stuff that you would do, like assets that are activated, but for the purposes of defense against Vagrant, those are the relevant actions. Am I missing anything in there?
Maybe how many creds each faction is willing to pay to the Deathless?
Oh, yeah, good call. If you want to just comment that under your respective house. On the Deathless front, I think we've been talking with Deathless a fair amount and trying to get some quotes. So we may just continue doing that and then kind of see what they're charging for kind of the stuff we've discussed, and then see how much. Oh, I completely forgot about the Fornex Strike Fleet one.
yeah, I was going to say we definitely would like to know how much the Deathless are asking for, because like Vela is probably Vela for the moment. Like that's something we're pretty sure we would do is give credits, but like the Demagogue right now is being a hard sell because we really, really like that asset where it is right now, so that we can move it somewhere else in a turn or two. But I mean, if it has to be done, it has to be done. Lightning.
A lot of interference there, Vela.
Yeah.
He said lightning.
That's because I was going to say lightning just struck, like, I don't know, in eyesight. So
cool.
Oh my god, where are you?
Cool or terrifying?
There's a big thunderstorm on this.
I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So
oh, damn.
I see.
Yeah, we just got out of winter weather and now we're into construction weather. So
yeah, okay. So can you just comment on your creds? So Church added their creds.
I was going to say, basically, we would be willing to basically split whatever necessary in most cases. Like if they're asking for, I'm just going to throw out an astronomical number. If 3 of our factions say, yeah, we'll pitch this much, and they say, yeah, we need 9 fact creds for whatever ludicrous reason, and they say 9, we would probably be willing to front 3 of it or whatever needed, right? Like it would be a fair share of whatever is needed.
Yeah, one thing worth mentioning is that Deathless was going to charge us more if we wanted them to stay on Tootham and attack. This will be a less expensive plan.
Very well, that's fine. We will just give them the credits. They like whatever you decide you want to do with the Deathless, we will just pay.
Yeah, we'll sort it out. Okay, so
Right,
in that case,
right, and that's where we're just get us a number, and we'll tell you like, well, if it's split 3 ways between the major houses or whatever. I'm just throwing shit out there right now, but
ultimately,
just tell us what you need us to pay, and we'll figure that out.
Yeah, ultimately, Crux just gives you 5 credits to barter with the Deathless for your own defense plans, whatever you feel is the best way to defend you.
Do their movement assets cost credits?
Yes, they do. That will almost certainly be part of the cost.
Yeah.
Based on what they've quoted us already.
An extended theater costs 1 credit to move 1 asset.
Blockade runner costs 2.
So that's 3 credits to move.
Yep. We might be able to talk them down a little bit just because we have a pretty good relationship, but we'll have to see where that goes.
I mean, I'm role-playing as a Russian patriarch as well, if you want me in the talks to bless them or whatever.
I'm totally okay with doing this entire meeting in IC if you wanted, but most people were like OOC.
Way easier to be OOC.
Oh no, I totally would have done this in IC. I was just...
It's really easy to be Crux, OOC, and IC.
You guys are welcome after we're done to IC your fucking heart out.
Oh yeah, no, totally. I think we probably should. Once we've gotten everything written down, let's IC exactly how we do everything. Because like I'm now pulling into the driveway, so I'm home, and thankfully it's not raining too badly. Only a few droplets on the phone, but
okay,
I would be up for that for sure.
But I can contribute, like I can try to fictionalize what the Triangle rep said today.
Yes. Okay. So ultimately, I think unless there's anything else that people have, I think we've got the information we need. If anyone wants to add anything, feel free. Otherwise, I think we're good. We're done.
The only thing I'd like to add is thank you to Fornax and Vela because the meeting was done last minute. The Fornax rep had to step down and find someone else to replace them. The Vela rep had to phone in from their car or something. Yeah, I arrived.
We'll have to work 3 hours early.
I arrived in my house like 5 minutes before the meeting started and left work early for this. It was like I know that quite a lot of the people who are here went out of their way to get here. And
yeah, so I guess related to that, so just to make sure everyone understands the situation we're in now, the asset allocation stream was on, I believe, the 10th or 11th, and the 11th, and the first faction turn is the 28th. So that is literally 11 days less than we will normally have to do this. So like the fucking hair on fire that we had to do this time will not be the case in the future.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I'm sure all of us expect that we're going to need something like part of a week or a whole week to handle. Yeah, like we all have to let ourselves have like a week plus to have our own houses approve stuff. So the fact that we only had 2 weeks was such a clusterfuck.
Yeah, no, for Vela, like, unfortunately, because we've decided to go direct democracy, most things have to go through a 3-step system just to get things implemented, which means that most of the time, like, the way we're currently working it out is that a faction turn ends, like if Adam ends his faction turn stream and we start a new document on whatever needs to get made, and then roughly 2 weeks before the next faction turn is when that stuff ends, and we do our 1-2 voting for things. So we say, okay, what do we want to do? And then how are we going to use that action, for example, or whatever. It's just been extremely abbreviated because of all this.
Yeah,
but
it's harder to run the 1 decision per week when you have less weeks. Can I just say I agree with Reticulum and Triangulum. We're going to have 4 weeks rather than like 2 and a bit. Next time it will be easier to organize. However, let's not be complacent. If we are to have the next meeting for the next turn, let's have it as early as possible and not think we've got a whole month. Don't worry about it. Let's just try and get it out quickly.
So yeah, exactly related to that.
That's the best.
We had talked in the Houses Minor about just like penciling in a meeting for the first Friday, like basically the first Friday evening every time after following a faction turn.
Yeah, perhaps.
We can just pencil that in, and then as we get closer, we can reschedule if need be.
As
Yeah,
long
that'd
as
be
people are proactively trying to get a meeting up within a week or so, as you know, as soon as is possible and convenient, rather than just going, well, you know, wait 3 weeks and then we'll see what happens. And then this meeting is fairly last minute, and I'd like this to be the last Imperial Council that happens as last minute.
Have we discussed policies about sharing what we've discussed in houses, how public we want to make that, how we're going to do that? Or did I miss that? Or?
We voted fairly unanimously against not streaming this thing.
Right.
However,
I mean, now that we've decided something,
talking to your houses and talking about talking to your houses about what we discussed in the meeting and what we are taking out of it and such is expected, and obviously urging your houses not to share outside is expected.
Yeah, my understanding is that nobody has said that anything we've shared here cannot be shared with their house.
I've actively told you to.
It's going to end up in the more public channels eventually if we do that. Just as long as you guys.
Yes, there are ultimately like 1,300 people, so there will be some leaks. It's expected. It is more important to have the meeting than to sacrifice the meeting to keep things secretive, and ultimately you're just going to have to accept the risks. We wouldn't be here if we thought that the absolute primary concern was to keep things at utmost secret.
That's how I feel, just making sure that everyone is aware.
I know the meeting is winding down. Just to be clear, non-aggression pack is a no-brainer. Everyone's for it, right?
Yeah.
Do we want to formalize that as a no attacking with any assets, more so than just the no force?
I've said this before. We don't really mind either way. If you want to sign a pact with us, we'll sign a pact with you. Crux isn't going to attack anyone. It would be nice for peace of mind to have people write down that they're not going to attack us, but we don't expect you to either. So
it's a nice thing for the non-reps too as well, to share to our house, to be like, this is what has been decided, and it kind of culls any issue. Like in case people come back up during the next faction turn, we can give this document to them as well. So it kind of extends beyond the council, and stopping any issues that we might have with people just showing up to genuinely cause drama and stir shit around the houses major and minor.
Speaking specifically as the Reticulum rep, a formal signed non-aggression treaty between all of us would go a long way for my house.
That's fine.
Same for Lyra.
The only thing I'm concerned about is that last time House Aquila tried to write one, and then a load of people.
Yeah, it was a mess.
Since the meeting's dying down, instead of listening, I'll coin in on that. So that was a huge misunderstanding and just a miscommunication, because that was just supposed to be an IC thing of the original pact, not a new one. Mm-hmm. But yes, we would 100% be on board with something of that nature.
So yeah, the only concern is just people are floating around treaty, and I'm like, let's be more diligent in the future with treaties about making sure everyone knows exactly what they're doing before we start doing it.
It's already been corrected for sure.
After this meeting concludes, the next thing that we start discussing in this Discord channel is about meeting again to discuss a real non-aggression pact.
Okay, so
yeah, or if someone wants to write up a draft document and just only put it in the Imperial Council chat here, that would be perfect as well.
Okay,
the church would probably insist on some wording rejecting the humanity repentant. I just gotta say,
that's fine. I mean, we can start. We got to start somewhere, and then we can debate the details later.
Okay, so now that I'm actually home and have a moment to sit down rather than trying to figure it out on bike or at work. Okay, so House Vela's stance is currently our original intent was to expand influence on Urgus. That's what we originally wanted to do. It's our in-character goal. In character, we also recognize that there's an agreement to protect the houses should the houses be in danger, which is why we are okay with submitting whatever our share of fat creds needs to be for the deathless. We would ideally prefer it to be somewhat of an equal share, but if it needs to be more fronted on our side, that can work, but we should probably discuss that. In addition, right now, in terms of moving troops to Lodestone, counterintelligence unit is almost likely a yes. I cannot get enough of people to say yes to a demagogue. So that's something that's still possibly not feasible yet. I'm working on that.
Is that still?
Is there any specific reason why you're not going to move the demagogue?
out of characters just right now. A lot of people seem to say no in the house, and I'm trying to figure out why. I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm trying to figure that out, but I just wanted to clarify everything now that I'm able to look at 4 different screens of information rather than look at it all on a phone. So yeah, it's some people are concerned that because of this we'd be playing catch up or something like that. So I think some of them are more mechanically minded than characteristically minded. But
you need to sweeten the deal by giving a convincement to your faction. You will not be playing catch up by missing your first turn to defend the Empire, because we're all doing that as well. You would be at the exact same point as all of us.
No, I get that. I'm just, it's hard to show everybody that that's going to actually be the case.
Sure.
Right.
That's going to be all of our jobs going forward. Winning hearts and minds, having this conversation 4,000 times every 4 hours.
Yeah.
We signed up for.
Which is why that treaty would be really helpful, especially against hawkish elements, you know.
Yeah,
hawkish elements?
If so, we don't have any, we're Pixis, like, we don't want to fight at all.
Reticulum has some.
Yeah, exactly. We can certainly imagine that
Shocking.
someone in Aquila is saying we should kill X and then create a new Blood Eagle.
And a reminder that the way we've worked at it all, it's all got to be put to vote. So things like the fat cred thing will be a vote, and the lodestone moving will be a vote, and probably it'll be a vote similar to something like, do we move troops to lodestone? Yes. Demagogue and counterintelligence? Yes. Demagogue? Yes. Counterintel? No. It'll be some sort of vote like that.
That might occur on again?
What's that?
Could you clarify what turn that might occur on again?
Well, for us, it'd be most feasible on turn 2. But we recognize that there is a threat of Vagrant landing in turn 1, and if it needs to happen turn 1, that will also be considered. Like, that's something that we can.
Here's the thing: as the faction willing to put up the lion's share of the money at the moment, it seems, should Crux talk to the Deathless, because the Deathless's contract deadline is Friday the 18th.
We already have a meeting scheduled for them.
It's very nice that Crux is willing to give the money.
Okay, I just so that I can help explain this better to my house in general. Can we get a small synopsis? They specifically asking about church and majors, if that's okay, because Crux, you're from what I understand from our discussion, Psychic Assassin's going to Tootham, and Church is doing what exactly?
Check Imperial Council, the channel. I'd like to go back there.
It's just that post, right?
I would also like to comment, since I believe it was Pixis mentioned.
That was a wholly hypothetical. I don't have any suspicions. Sorry, that was probably unfair.
That was unfair, because Aquila are, as we have been this whole time, all about unity of the Imperium, and we are not out to kill anybody. So
in general,
that sort of sentiment is not appreciated, but I understand that it was perhaps just out of turn.
I was just pulling out of nothing, but yeah, I don't think there's anyone like that.
In general, if Pixis could stop throwing out those allegations. You've told us that Crux are going to betray you. You've told us that Aquila are going to attack the Empire. Let's just chill with that.
Yeah, I mean, please stop. We'll leave it. We'll leave it all.
Furthermore, on the topic of the pact, I think it would also go really far to assuage a lot of the sort of animosity towards like Crux and such that has been happening since the beginning, that is just not a real thing in the universe, or it shouldn't be, and things of that nature. So certainly Aquila would be behind it.
Yeah, it'd be great to put those fears to bed.
Also, since Crux is putting up so much money, I think after a couple of turns, when we have the infrastructure, the church that is needed to move on Shan, not counting on Humanity Repentant doing that, we will have a lot of free money to give out as interest-free loans, I think, once we get our shipping lanes, or
let's not worry about that for now. Thank you for offering, but for now, Crux is giving the money. We don't expect to get it back. We don't need to get it back. We need to just do what we need to do to defend the Empire. We can, if we need funds to defend the Empire, we might talk about using assets and pay half now, pay half later, using assets that we promise to pay you for later, taking loans. But currently, Crux is just mostly interested in actually helping. rather than setting up investment opportunities.
Yeah, so whoever was asking about what the church is doing, what the high priest said in the chat there is essentially what we'll be doing. Turn 2, we can use our core transit net to move the broker and the demagogue to whatever place the vagrant stack is. But for now, I think keeping that the demagogue on Imperial Prime and not using our assets to just move the commodities broker is the optimal way of doing things.
May I just ask when the church estimates that they will be on the planet of Shan?
I think it was turn 5 or 6 was their initial estimate.
We can be on Shan turn 4 if we do it with shipping combines and kill them by turn 6. And we can be on Shan by turn 5 if we do it with the transit net.
Okay, well, so just to kind of wrap this up, I don't think there's anything else we individually need to take back to our houses. So unless there's something else that's desperately important, maybe wrap this up and split. If you guys want to discuss further, you're welcome to stay, though.
We said most of the things we need to say.
Yeah,
there's a recording.
We just need to vote on stuff we discussed, and then should we schedule another meeting to make sure everyone is on board with the plan, or should we just do it by text?
I think we should do it by text. Getting
Okay.
any other meeting time, because ultimately we basically need to decide this probably by the end of this weekend for most people to have time to vote.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be very easy for us to get everyone in one place. And ultimately, what we're going to need to do, like we've done the theory crafting now, all we need to do now is say, yes, we can do this, no, we can't do this, and then respond to those results.
One thing that's to consider is that if you think Crux's Psychic Assassins need to move again, we will look at turn 2 whether staying on 2 of them and finishing the job is the best move, or
we can
if moving is the best
reevaluate.
move.
Okay,
Our position's a bit simpler by luxury of the fact that we know we are not a viable target for Vagrant to attack. They will be destroyed instantly if they came to us. We wouldn't need any reinforcements.
Yeah, so Diamond, are you going to be able to upload, do you think you can upload that to like the Houses Minor YouTube as an unlisted thing? And then we can just post that here.
That was the original plan from what I was told.
Cool.
They're saying yes, that is the plan in the chat.
And we can share that recording around with our house if they wanted to listen in.
Also, we're having an RP event this weekend. One of our high priests is being disciplined and going on pilgrimage, so you're all welcome to join.
Yes, my wife and I are both there.
Oh, on that front, just be on the lookout. In the future, there will be a boat race on Amori that everyone is invited to.
I would be happy to be dragged into any political clusterfuck that you have. Just wait in the wings.
Well, cool. I think we're done here. Good job, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for being very cordial and making this a really good meeting for me. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you for your time, everyone.
The only thing I want to mention, based on now that I've been able to relay some of this information to the house, now that I'm actually home, so they can actually see things, they're realizing kind of now how much they should probably pony up, which is what I was trying to say earlier. I just didn't have a good way of communicating it to them earlier. So they're working on that. The only thing is that we have our own concerns with the 14 red dogs near 700 being something we want to work with rather than against. But I know somebody was saying earlier that the 14 red dogs possibly are working with Vagrant, but not from what they've told us thus far. So I just want to know, like, we don't have anything, I guess, from 14 red dogs either. But that's something that we're personally, like, that would be something we're not going to expect most of the houses to come and help with.
I'd be working with the 14 red dogs, but that's not really an Imperial Council matter.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Not yet,
But
at least.
Not yet.
I think that once our first turn shakes out, we should have a fairly good hold on Vagrant that we can go. That everybody should be able to go back to what
Sure.
they're doing. But
I just
I will say
internally.
this much: the minor houses can move pretty quickly in response to any kind of threat. Not really in range of Vela, but if we would see them coming at the very least, right? Because they would move so slowly. And minor houses would be able to perhaps respond with the transit weapon, cut them off, or come closer to help shore up your defenses, especially in exchange for or in thanks for covering picks.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I'm gonna hop out. Have fun, guys.
See you later. Have a good one.
See you guys. Bye. Nice
Thank you, everyone.
All right, guys.